Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from +-apricot-2067. My sister called my husband a effing nepotism baby. What should I do? I am the youngest of 7 kids. The problem I have is with the eldest sibling, my sister Mary. Mary has always undermined and judged my choices growing up. For example, when I wanted to take a gap year after high school to save money for university, Mary told me it was a bad idea, and that once I took a gap year, I'd never go back. Just like her, I almost didn't go through with it because she made me second-guess myself. Then, after the gap year, I changed my major after the first semester, and she yelled at me for hours about how I was going to ruin my life and waste all my money since I couldn't make up my mind. I have countless examples of times she made me cry from her yelling or made me question my decisions. And at the time, I felt compelled to listen to her. After meeting my husband, then boyfriend, and getting a therapist, they both helped me realize I needed to distance myself from Mary because she's extremely toxic and both emotionally and verbally abusive. It took a lot of effort, but I finally went no contact with her. I finished university, got a job in my chosen field, thanks to my brother-in-law, moved in with my husband, and eventually got married. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy. I still see Mary during family events and holidays. I hate seeing her, but it's my family too, and I don't want to miss out because of her. However, she always finds a way to ruin the holiday for me. She often takes digs at my husband, saying she doesn't like him, and that I could do better. My husband usually tells me to ignore her, because he thinks she's only doing it for a reaction. Last weekend, we had our Thanksgiving celebration at my mom's house. When we arrived, my husband asked my mom if we could host Christmas at our place, since her house is getting too small to fit everyone. Before my mom could respond, Mary jumped in, saying we shouldn't offer a home we didn't buy, and then called my husband a nepotism baby. That comment made me mad, because she knows nothing about my husband's situation. My husband inherited our home from his grandfather after he passed away, so her saying that was incredibly insensitive. Both my mom and I told her off, and she quieted down for a bit. But during dinner, my brother asked me how work was going, and Mary chimed in again, claiming I probably don't work since my husband is rich. I corrected her, explaining that we're not rich, and that I work as a preschool teacher, and she knows this. Standing up for myself seemed to completely set her off. She yelled at me, saying I was only working there because I couldn't handle the other program I was in, and that she knows I'm not happy with my temporary job, and I should be pursuing a more serious career. Mary kept yelling, tearing into my life choices. I got anxious and nervous, as I always do when she yells. It brings back the trauma she caused me. I tried to defend myself, but started stuttering, which made her escalate. My mom and siblings tried to get her to stop, but she wouldn't. Then she said something that hurt the most. She called me a disappointment, and claimed my mom felt the same way. At that point, my husband lost it. He started yelling at her, which is rare for him since he's usually very calm. He swore at her and called her some names, including a and a cunt. He also called her evil and said no one in the family liked her. It turned into a screaming match. My mom tried to calm Mary down, and I my husband, but neither of them would stop. My husband and I ended up leaving and going back to the Airbnb we were staying at. The next day, we went back to my mom's house. My husband apologized to my mom for yelling and ruining dinner, but said he wouldn't apologize to Mary. Since then, my mom has been calling me, asking me to get my husband to apologize, to keep the peace. Mary still lives with her, and my mom is tired of her ranting about how rude my husband was, and cursing him out. But I told my mom I'm not going to make him apologize. I know he was rude, and some of the things he said were harsh. But Mary was always rude, and no one is telling her to apologize to us. So, AITA for not telling my husband to apologize, just to keep the peace with my sister? I know that neither of us owe Mary anything, but apologizing would make things easier on my mom. OP is not an AH for standing for her husband. Instead, OP's sister is an AH for calling OP's husband nepotism baby and insulting him. OP's mom is also an AH for demanding OP's husband to apologize to the toxic sister-in-law. So I would rate OP's sister and mom 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from Rosie Page. AITA for ditching my mother-in-law on Thanksgiving? My mother-in-law has been ruining Thanksgiving for me for years, and somehow she makes it more complicated every year. It started out with her just being overly stressed about hosting, and she would snap at everyone and just make the whole atmosphere uncomfortable. But I always tried to be helpful and understanding. I mean, hosting is stressful, right? Then one year, I walked in on her smack-talking the dessert I had brought to my SIL, and it hit me hard. Thanksgiving has never been the same for me since. In recent years, other people in the family have voiced their opinions about her antics, so at least I felt less alone in it. One year, she passive-aggressively announced to everyone in a group text that since it was very expensive, she would need us to all split up the dishes and bring something, as if we weren't already doing that for years to begin with. She would often assign my husband and me things that she knew we couldn't mess up. Mind you, I cook for my family literally every day with zero complaints, like bring pepperoni and cheese and crackers. I designed a massive charcuterie board that year just to prove that I was capable of more than just bringing pepperoni and cheese. The following year, she texted us that in addition to splitting up the menu, she would be purchasing all of the ingredients for us, instructed us to Venmo her our share, and she would drop them off with her preferred dishes that she would like them served in. The worst part is that, while she had assigned sweet potato casserole to me because she doesn't like it, she didn't even drop off fresh ingredients, 1x2 bag of stale marshmallows from her pantry, and a can of yams, or the right ingredients, or right-sized dishes, and in addition to venoming her, I still needed to go out and buy the ingredients for my dish. Last year was particularly stressful with them in general, as there was a lot of other family drama going on. The one SL I'm close with was going to be out of town for the holiday with her family anyway. So I put my foot down and told my husband I refused to spend the day with his mom and wanted to have Thanksgiving at home with my family. He understood, and my in-laws had friends they were hosting anyway. Then, at the last minute, their plans fell through, and they had no one to spend Thanksgiving with. So of course I agreed to invite them to our Thanksgiving. This year, we had all been avoiding the Thanksgiving conversation, except my FIL, who is relatively oblivious to everything and would talk about it every time we saw him as if everything was going back to normal. So, in the spirit of trying to heal all the stuff from the past, I didn't argue and just waited for further instruction from my MIL. A few weeks ago, she came to my house and basically politely uninvited us, stating that it's just a lot of people this year. For context, it is a lot of people. She had always invited my family over as well, which I appreciated. And if she's telling me she feels it's too much for her, who am I to argue? TBH. I was relieved to not have to spend the day with her, until I turned and looked at my daughter's face, and my husband's face when I told him. They were both extremely hurt that they were being excluded. On the one hand, it was understandable why she had chosen us. We have a whole other family to celebrate with. But on the other hand, her other children and grandchildren were still invited, so they definitely felt not great about it. To make it worse, she suggested that we do Thanksgiving at my mom's house. My mom was fine with it, but I thought it was a bit odd to go volunteering her to host without even talking to her. And then, everyone, all the people that were too many people for my MIL, could meet at my house for pie and a bonfire. Fine. My kids would be devastated if they didn't get to see their cousins for Thanksgiving, so we'll make it work. I think I've been a really good sport. Even when she made it extra awkward by not telling anyone that she had uninvited us, including her own husband, who awkwardly asked what the plans were, and she just hushed him and told him, "Don't worry about it." Even when she lied to my 11-year-old niece's face when she asked her if my kids would be there, and she told her, "Of course, why wouldn't they be?" I literally had to turn to my 14-year-old, who witnessed the initial conversation, and ask if I had imagined it. She assured me I had not. Fast forward to 2 days ago, and my husband gets a phone call from his mum, telling him that their plans fell through again, and would we like to come after all? From a logistical standpoint, we've already planned our menu for my mom's Thanksgiving, and purchased the majority of the food. From a moral standpoint, no. Just no. Why would I want to go over there after all the frustration she put everyone through this year? And to top it off, It really bothered me the way she went about it. When she knew my husband might be upset, she came to me to uninvite us. When she knew I would be peeved to have to change plans again, she went to him. It just feels so manipulative and cowardly. I felt really justified in putting my foot down and saying, "No, you made your bed, now lay in it." Except everyone is unhappy. My kids are unhappy. My nieces are unhappy. My husband is unhappy. AITA for wanting to just stick to the original plan to avoid my MIL as much as possible that day. OP is not an AH for standing up to her mother-in-law's inconsistent and manipulative behavior. She takes OP and her children for granted, which cannot be justified in any way. OP's has the right to take her own decision for her convenience. As for scores, I would rate OP's mother-in-law 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump on to the next story from a man with flaws. Made a horrible mistake while blackout out drunk. AITA? I'm a 23-year-old guy, and my girlfriend, who's also 23, is the love of my life. We've been together for 5 years, and I've always tried to be the best partner I can be. Over time, I've developed a close bond with her family. She has a 22-year-old sister who's gay and 3 younger siblings aged 17, 18, and 20. I've always treated them as my own siblings, being there for them during tough times and earning their trust and respect, even financially as well. A few weeks ago, everything fell apart in one night, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. My girlfriend and I hosted a party with her siblings and a few others. We had 2 bottles of gin to start, and I'll admit, I've been struggling with binge drinking lately. That night, I drank far more than I should have. Within 45 minutes, I had 4 strong drinks from the first bottle, more than 90 milliliters with empty stomach. And by the time the second bottle was opened, I was already losing control. I drank majorly of the bottles. From what I remember, the night started out fine. We were all talking, dancing, and having deep conversations. I tried to be supportive, comforting one sibling about a breakup and giving advice to another about life challenges. But things spiraled quickly. After finishing the second bottle, I suggested we get more booze. My girlfriend agreed, but started feeling sick on the way. I helped her back to the apartment, tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and told her I loved her. At that moment, I felt like I was still trying to do the right thing, even though I was drunk. After she fell asleep, I went with one of her siblings to get another bottle. He later told me we had a great conversation, and that hurts even more because what happened afterward destroyed that bond completely. When we returned, the third bottle was opened. This time, it was mostly me and her gay sister drinking, while her girlfriend lay on her lap and 2 of her siblings sitting. I finished most of the third bottle by myself. That's when I blacked out completely, and everything after that is based on what I've been told. Here's what happened. At some point, while we were all dancing earlier, her gay sister gave me a peck on the cheeks. She immediately apologized to both my girlfriend and her own girlfriend, saying it was a mistake. I didn't even register it at the time because I was already drunk. Later in my blackout state, I was wandering around the house finding my girlfriend. As it was dark and shouting baby, I mistook her sister for my girlfriend in the dark and gave her a peck on the lips, calling her baby, which is what I only call my girlfriend. Her sister didn't push me away or anything. Instead, she woke up her girlfriend and told her what had happened. The 2 of them then woke up my girlfriend and told her I kissed her sister, which I don't remember. When my girlfriend woke up, her sister came to me and made me give a peck to her again, and her gay girlfriend made sure my girlfriend is watching me doing that, and this time as well, she didn't stop me. I apparently gave a peck to her sister a second time in my drunken confusion. Her sister's girlfriend made sure my girlfriend saw it this time. My girlfriend slapped me hard, and the noise woke up the whole apartment. I was told I wandered around after that, completely incoherent, calling people by the wrong names and making no sense. I was confused with everybody's name, as I was calling my girlfriend by her sister's name, and was also confusing with the boy's name. 2 of her brothers were so angry they physically confronted me, slapping and hitting me several times. My girlfriend had to step in to stop them. I didn't fight back, and apparently I didn't even react. I was too far gone. The next morning, I woke up alone in the apartment, bruised and shattered. I had no memory of what happened. When I called my girlfriend, she explained everything. I was horrified. I immediately apologized to everyone, my girlfriend, her siblings, and her sister's girlfriend. I broke down and cried because I couldn't believe what I had done. I've spent years building trust and love with this family, and in one night, I destroyed it all. What makes this harder is that my girlfriend believes her sister may have tried to frame me further, possibly to cover up her own actions or to shift blame. I don't know what to believe because I don't remember, but I know in my heart that I never intended to kiss her sister, and I never ever found her attractive at all and thought of her like that. I've always seen her as family, and this mistake happened because I was blackout drunk, but I'm not able to understand if it happened one time. Why did she let it happen second time? Just show her girlfriend and my girlfriend that it's just me, not her. I mean, she could have just told them that this happened. Why do a live demonstration again? It's been 23 days since that night. I haven't touched alcohol since and have joined AA. My girlfriend has forgiven me, but I'm haunted by guilt, shame, and regret. I've had nightmares and moments of overwhelming self-hatred. I've realized how irresponsible and dangerous my drinking was, and I've committed to never drinking again. I'm not able to forgive myself. The fact that they beat me like that has become a trauma for me. Thank God I don't remember them doing that, as all I have is imagination. I feel like I've lost everything. My respect, my reputation, and the bond I had with her siblings. I'm trying to rebuild, but the weight of what happened is crushing me. I know I made terrible mistakes that night, and I take full responsibility for my actions. I just hope people can see that I'm genuinely remorseful and trying to change. OP is not an AH for his actions because he did all this while drunk. However, his actions were highly irresponsible. Despite this, he is not an AH because he quit drinking, which shows his genuine remorse. Let's now move on to the next story from Last Garbage 1880. AITA. If I tell my ex-friend that can't watch her dog for 6+ months. I, 25F, and my acquaintance, 26, used to be pretty good friends. I was a drug addict, sober for a little over 2.5 years now, and she never treated me differently, and I always have valued that she always saw me for me and never acted like I was some lousy gross addict. She understood I had just made some bad choices and dealt with my trauma with drugs. The most I ever asked her for help-wise was a shoulder to cry on and to help me possibly lay out a plan for getting finances back on track and how to turn my life around. I moved towns and got sober, but we would still see each other on a monthly basis until she got pregnant. I would go see her occasionally, but since then, it has dwindled down to pretty much nothing on her end, and an occasional text from me saying, "Oh, how are you? Hope you're all doing good, miss you." Or a reply to her story of her child, and whatnot. Well, a month or so ago, I text her telling her I have before that I appreciate so much how she has been my friend, and never viewed me differently, and always supported me no matter what. We had a small convo back and forth, saying, "I miss yours," and "How are you?" and a little update. Then, a week or so later, I get a message from her, asking me to watch her dog. I have watched the dog in the past for a few days one time. This was maybe 2 years ago. I had to decline because I was going out of state at the same time as she needed help. Fast forward to today, I wake up with a message asking me to call her when I can. So, I do. And I was honestly shocked at what she asked me to do. She asked me to watch her dog for a minimum of 6 months, or until her husband gets stationed in the military, could be up to even 8+ months. She literally told me, "Not trying to put pressure on you or anything, but if you don't say yes, I'll have to take her to a shelter." She claims they ended their current lease and signed the lease in a whole different state this morning, and that what the leasing office rules had stated online were different from the contract they sent her this morning after they signed the papers. I've asked if family can take the dog. I asked if she could break the lease or something. She is saying no to both things. 6 months is a lot to ask. Even 6 weeks is a lot. Especially from someone you don't really text unless prompted, or if you need something. I leave the state at least once a month, and I already have multiple animals in my tiny 1-bedroom house, including a dog I have to take to my parents every time I leave state and cats I have to pay someone to feed and check on. Also, the dog is a little older and can't be left alone for over 8 hours, or it may have an accident. She did offer to pay for dog food and whatnot, and Rover when I went out of town, but I don't think she understands how crazy my schedule is. Just since I talked to her this morning, when I thought the only I have coming up in the next couple of weeks is going to FL. I have found out I may be going to NY next week. My schedule is ever changing, and I could go out of town every 2 weeks for the next 6 months. She also is moving out of state, What's to say you even have plans of coming back? I don't know. Part of me thinks she said things to try and get me to say yes, and won't end up paying for Rover the entire time once she realizes just how much it will be needed, and then part of me thinks she is a good person and wouldn't do that, and would definitely come get her dog after exactly 6 months. But I haven't really been friends with her for 2 years almost. I'm not sure. She could just be under immense pressure and trying to get rid of the dog. I don't know. 6 months is a lot of time. Like, I don't even fully know where I'll be in 6 months. I just don't really want to say yes and think she is low-key crazy for even asking this of me. And the part about if I don't say yes, she will have to take the dog to a shelter. Why would you say that to me? She knows I am a huge animal lover, and that alone is making me want to say forget it, I'll deal with it and figure it all out, I got this. But then I'm like, it's your darn dog, and you aren't even thinking that, and I am? WTH. I told her I would think about it, and it's just a lot to ask, and asked her about the alternatives. And she basically told me nothing else is possible. OP is not an AH for refusing to take in her friend's dog. His friend is forcing him to take care of her pet. While OP already has a busy life, he did nothing wrong by refusing. Instead, here OP's friend is being an AH for being demanding. So I would rate him 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump on to the next story from Michi0915. AITA for not sharing location with my parents as a married woman. I, 20F, have been married to my husband, 25M, for over 2 months now. However, when I told my family about him 5 months ago, they didn't take the news well. They tried everything to break us up. They would constantly tell me that I wasn't ready to be a wife, and that he would eventually get tired of me and divorce me. My husband is in the medical field, and my parents believed that once he became a fully practicing physician, he would leave me for someone better. They thought I was far too young for marriage and that I was ruining my life. In our culture, dating isn't allowed, so couples go through a process of getting to know each other before becoming engaged and eventually married. My husband and I had planned to introduce our families, get engaged, and then have a 6-month engagement period to plan a small, intimate wedding. We didn't want a grand wedding, which further upset my parents. My father, after an introductory call with my husband, met with him to ask for my hand in marriage. He seemed pleased afterward, telling me that my husband was a good, capable man. I thought everything was fine, but things took an unexpected turn. After the meeting, my father began giving me the silent treatment for a week and acted more aggressively with me. At the end of the week, he sat me down and told me I wasn't allowed to get married. He yelled that if I cared for my parents, I would listen to them and give up on marriage for now. He said that I could wait 4-5 years, and then maybe we could talk about marriage again. He screamed that I wasn't ready, and that I would regret my decision, claiming my life would be ruined, and that he wouldn't help me if I ended up divorced. My mother supported him, saying that I should respect my parents and keep my head down. Despite their pressure, I stood my ground and told them I still wanted to be with my husband. My father then made it clear that he didn't want me to stay in their house and urged me to get married and get out of his face as I wasn't listening to him. He refused to attend our engagement ceremony and even told me there would be no whoring around before marriage. He gave me silent treatment to guilt me, but I still did not give in. However, after persuasion from my mother and grandmother, he agreed to an intimate engagement dinner where we set our wedding date. On our wedding day, my mother walked out in tears, saying that I hadn't involved her in anything. My father followed her. They were absent for the pictures and told me they didn't care about my feelings, only that I was their biological daughter. This wasn't the first time I had heard such things. When I was younger, they often told me, "We may love you, but we don't like you." Despite this, my husband and I went to my mom afterward to calm her down. Thankfully, she settled down after some kind words from me, and we ended the night with some food and photos to make up for the ones my parents had missed. Later that night, my husband and I went to our new apartment. My mother was upset that I wasn't going to their house one last time before leaving for our honeymoon the next morning. Our apartment is 40 minutes away, and it was late, so I wanted to rest. My mom called me repeatedly that night, upset that I hadn't called her as soon as I got home. She had checked my location, which made me uncomfortable. After I told her I wanted to spend my first night with my husband, she blocked me for 24 hours. This behavior continued. My mom would check my location every time I went home, and when I didn't call her right away, she would criticize me. I called her every day after my wedding to check in, but she would often complain that I was neglecting her after I got married. Eventually, I decided to turn off my location sharing for good. This made my parents furious. They called me and accused me of being a terrible, selfish daughter and said I should never speak to them again. They also complained that I wasn't visiting them enough, despite the fact that I see them every 2 to 3 weeks. I work a full-time office job and am a college student, so balancing everything, along with spending time with my husband, who shares household duties, is a lot. My parents tried to force me to turn my location back on, but I stood my ground. My husband stepped in, trying to calm the situation, but my parents were offended that he had interfered. They believed it was none of his business how they treated me. Eventually, they hung up on me and blocked me again. This time, they blocked me for a whole week. Only after some family members intervened did they unblock me. When I visited them after they unblocked me, they were distant and cold, acting like strangers. A few weeks later, the situation escalated again. My parents demanded that I turn my location back on and wanted an apology as well. I refused, reiterating that if they wanted to know where I was, they could just call me. They told me I had to respect them, but I couldn't continue to live under this pressure. The constant fighting and their inability to accept my autonomy has taken a massive toll on my mental health. I haven't called them in a week. I feel like a failure as a daughter, a sister, and even as a person. My anxiety has worsened, and I feel like I can never breathe. I don't know how to fix things with my parents, or if I eventually want to. And that also makes me feel guilty because I grew up in a home where the elders are to always be respected. They don't respect my boundaries, and I feel suffocated by their demands. My relationship with my husband is the only thing that brings me peace. But even that feels under threat because of the tension between my parents and me. I'm struggling to balance my desire for independence with the weight of my family's expectations. This situation is overwhelming, and I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this. OP is not an AH for setting boundaries to protect her mental health. OP's parents are AHs for being too much controlling and intrusive. OP's demand for privacy after her marriage is 100% justified. So, I would rate OP's parents 2.5 out of 5, and OP gets 0 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Bench 3921. AITA for refusing to go to a meeting with the man who molested my wife when she was a child, and not being receptive to any sort of apology from him. I met my wife in college, and we've been married for a little over 4 years now. After we got engaged, my wife told me there was something serious she needed to tell me before we got married. I learned that when she was around 6 years old, she was molested by her cousin, who was in 6th grade at the time. It went on for several months, and it didn't come out until her mom took her to a psychologist because she was acting out so much, i.e. wetting the bed, having meltdowns, fighting at school. I won't get into details, but the things he did were extreme and things that no young children should be subjected to. I actually got teary hearing about it, and it was the first time my wife had ever seen my cry. The cousin pleaded guilty to the crime in juvenile court, and it came out that he had also been molested as a child. The cousin served some time in juvenile prison and also got help for his issues. According to my wife, both he and his mother have taken responsibility and expressed genuine remorse. The cousin and my wife have had a few face-to-face meetings over the years, and he's told her repeatedly how sorry he is and how much guilt he feels for putting her in the position. He's also asked if there is anything he can do for her and has even offered to pay for her therapy, which my wife has declined. My wife has forgiven him and feels sorry about what he went through as a child, and also the intense guilt he feels for his actions. The families don't socialize or spend holidays together anymore because it's too painful for everyone involved. But I don't think there are bad feelings anymore. With that being said, my wife and her older brother are clear that they don't want their kids near him after what happened. My wife is actually a juvenile defense attorney now and represents a lot of young kids, like her cousin. She's great at her job and has a ton of empathy for the kids she works with. I can see how one would have empathy for kids who have been through a lot and then commit crimes. But it's much harder for me to be understanding towards my wife's cousin, since I've seen firsthand how much this has impacted her. She has night terrors sometimes, impulsively jerks when someone touches certain parts of her body, i.e. lower back, and had a lot of trouble enjoying when we first started dating. I'm glad that my wife has found peace and forgives her cousin, but I personally don't feel anything but rage when I think of him. Anyways, last night, my wife sat me down and told me she had something to speak with me about. Her cousin called her and expressed that he has a new girlfriend. He's been upfront with the woman about his history and about what he did to my wife when she was little. The woman now wants to have a conversation with my wife to better understand the situation, and my wife has agreed to meet them for coffee and describe what happened and how it's impacted her. My wife told me that she also wants to stress that her cousin took responsibility immediately, has expressed genuine remorse over the years, served his time without complaint, and has gone to therapy to work through his issues. My wife says she isn't trying to sway his girlfriend or tell her how to feel about it, but is instead trying to give her a complete picture of what happened. My wife asked if I would come too, because the cousin wants to have a conversation with me as well to express his remorse. He made this offer shortly after we got married, but I told my wife I wasn't in a place to be receptive to his apology. Once again, I told my wife that I'm probably not going to be receptive to an apology. I also said that if he's trying to convince his girlfriend that he's not a terrible person, I shouldn't be there because I'll definitely thwart his plans. My wife seemed confused and asked what I meant, and I said I'm pissed about what he did and can't sit back and listen to her describe what a model citizen he's been after, he raped her, and not lose my shit. My wife said that he's done everything right since the event occurred and asked what else I expect of him. I said I don't expect anything, but I don't want to be in the same room as someone who did such terrible things to her. My wife reminded me that he was a child at the time and was also being abused at home, and said we need to take those things into account when evaluating his moral culpability. I said that when I was in 6th grade, I wouldn't have dreamed of raping an innocent 6-year-old. I said that their cousin hurt her, and as her husband, there's nothing in my eyes that will ever change that. I also said I don't believe she truly thinks her cousin has changed, since she and her brother won't allow their children near the guy. My wife got teary and said that she'd never take any kind of risk with our children, even if she was 99.9% sure he'd changed. She also said I was making what happened about my feelings. She said she doesn't understand how I can't have empathy for a man who was abused as a child, made a mistake, and has since taken responsibility and made a genuine effort to make things right with his victim. I said I only care about her, and she said if I cared, I would at least try and see her perspective. My wife has been angry and distant with me all day. She seems to agree that I'm not in a good place to go to the meeting with the cousin, but she's frustrated by the things I said. Specifically, she doesn't like that I brought our girls into it and used her protective instincts against her. I'm not trying to override her feelings on the matter, but also, I think I have a right to have my own feelings towards the person who harmed her. AITA is not an AH for refusing to meet with a person who molested his wife in the past. OP's reaction is 100% justified. His wife just wanted to forgive him, but OP refused to meet him, which is absolutely right. As for scores, I would rate OP's wife 1, OP's wife cousin 3.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story. From FHXUA did AITA for refusing to host Thanksgiving this year? I, 30F, and my darling husband, 30M. Hosted last year my in-laws for Thanksgiving. It was a disaster. I am a nurse and work nights. I was exhausted. I was late making dinner. My DH's grandparents had to get fast food BC. I took too long to cook. My MIL was supposed to bring 3 sides, but she ended up bringing 1 frozen meatloaf that was about 6 inches long to feed 9 people. Essentially, she brought nothing to share. They came over, and at the end of the night they packed up all of our food and took it with them. We were under the impression they were putting the food in our fridge because that's what they said they were doing. We had absolutely no leftovers. Earlier this year, my husband's grandmother died after a 3-week hospital stay. I did everything I could to be there for MIL. I brought food, showed up every other day to spend time with Grandma, drove Grandpa back and forth to visit. When she passed, I bought MIL dress for the funeral. I checked in on MIL. Hubby and I drove Grandpa to the funeral. Ever since my MIL has been standoffish, I don't know why. I've run myself ragged to take care of her. Her own children don't check in on her as often as I do, or did. A week ago, she called me to ask about Thanksgiving dinner, and I told her I wasn't cooking. I was tired, I work a lot, 50 hours a week, and I don't appreciate people taking food they didn't cook out of my kitchen. She immediately started crying and telling me she lost her best friend. It's the first holiday season without her mom. She's sad. She's lonely. I told her tough luck. I'm tired of being taken for granted. She called my DH, who said he is staying out of it, but that now might not be the time for me to make a grand statement. AITA? Update. Last year I asked for help, but everyone either ignored me or gave some lame excuse like, I'm not good in the kitchen or I don't know how to cook. Meanwhile, they're sitting around while I'm running around the kitchen all day. After the meal, same thing. They sit around chatting and drinking while I'm the only one cleaning up. So, this year, I said, enough is enough. I told them I'm not hosting Thanksgiving. I suggested someone else step up, or we could split the cost of catering. Cue the drama. My siblings flipped out, complaining about how it's tradition for me to host. My mom called me selfish, and my aunt said I was ruining Thanksgiving for the kids because they love coming to my house. Now, they're all upset with me, calling me lazy and saying I'm ruining the holiday. Honestly, I'm tired of being treated like their personal chef and cleanup crew every year, but now I feel guilty for putting my foot down. Edit. Thank you to everyone for your thoughts and opinions. I didn't expect so many responses, and I really appreciate the support and perspectives shared. It's been reassuring to know I wasn't being unreasonable in this situation. Thanks again. My MIL and I have not gotten along since the day we met. She is very traditional and feels that women should stay home and raise the children, and should always be quiet and reserved. The man is king of his castle, and the wife is subservient to him. I am the total opposite. While I was a saham until both of my children, 15 and 17, began elementary school, I enjoy working outside of the home and enjoy having a career. I am very outspoken, and my husband and I treat each other like equal partners in our relationship. I have hosted Thanksgiving at our home since our first year together. We have always invited my in-laws, and without fail, my MIL has found something to complain about every single year. From the food I cook to the clothes I am wearing, she has made some passive-aggressive comments. For example, I do not put the stuffing in the turkey when I bake it. I have never done that. My MIL makes comments about how dry the turkey is, because it isn't stuffed, and how she never would serve dry turkey to guests. Last year, she complained to my husband that I am not welcoming to them, that I am crass and rude and unladylike. My husband told her that if she was kinder to me and respected the fact that I am or never will be a traditional housewife, I would be kinder to her. That made her very upset, and she told him that she will never accept me as his wife. Last week, she called my husband and asked when we can expect them for Thanksgiving dinner. I told my husband that maybe this year we could just do it as a family, the four of us only, and that I really wasn't looking forward to yet another visit where his mother was constantly putting me down and insulting my home food clothing. He said that he agreed, but they are his only family, other than us, and it didn't feel right to not have them here. I told my husband that I respected that they were his parents, but I just wanted 1 year where I could enjoy the holidays with my family without having to hide in the bathroom and cry. Update 2. After speaking to a Filipina friend of mine, reading everyone's comments and calming down, I decided to talk to MIL. She indeed did not mean to hurt my feelings or say anything with bad intentions. She really thought she was just complimenting me. She was very sorry for hurting me and wants to move on. She says she accepts me and loves me. Honestly, I've had a rough couple of months with unrelated issues, and I think her comments yesterday were just the straw that broke the camel's back. My boyfriend did get defensive when we talked about what happened, but he agreed to back me up if it happens again, and talk to her about not mentioning my weight. He also supports me correcting her or letting her know if she's being rude in the future. As far as Thanksgiving, I decided that the family being together is more important than my hurt feelings. I do enjoy making it nice for everyone. We don't know how many years she may have left, and I think I can let this incident go for now. I'm not confident that she will change, but I can probably handle anything for a couple days a year. My partner and I have dated for a few years, lived together for 2. When I first met his mom, I was very nervous and wanted her to like me. I learned some customs that show respect and did them. I cooked meals from scratch for her that she loved. Holidays were hosted in our home. I would cook for days and serve the whole family, making sure every detail was perfect. Holidays were lovely. I never had times like that with my own family, and was grateful to the point of tearing up many times, not in front of my partner's family. My partner and I have a business that takes up much of our time and hadn't seen his mother much lately, so I planned a day to pick her up, take her to a local coffee shop she enjoys, and to lunch. As soon as she saw me, she immediately commented that I had lost weight and complimented me multiple times, then asking to take selfies with me so she could post them on Facebook because I looked so pretty. I have had issues with eating disorders in the past, so the comments did make me feel weird, but I knew she was trying to compliment me, so I didn't say anything. We went to lunch and she wanted to take more selfies and was again complimenting my looks. She said, "You were okay before, but too overweight." I don't know why this hurt me, but it did. I blinked back tears, and the food came. I couldn't eat it, and found myself pushing food around, and only taking some bites of dry salad. My partner and mom ate, either not noticing that I wasn't really eating or not commenting on it. I did not want to cause a scene, because again, I knew she was trying to say something nice, but she is very blunt. She is not aware that I used to starve myself. She probably wouldn't have said it if she did. After lunch, she needed to go to the restroom, so I helped her. She's in her 80s and uses a cane but needs to be steadied. While she was washing her hands, she told me, "You know, I never liked you, but you're okay now." That did it. I couldn't hide the hurt anymore. I teared up and stammered awkwardly that her son would be right back to help her walk to the table. I went to the table and quietly told my partner I would take an Uber home, that I was upset about something his mom said, but I would see him at home. His mom tried to call me, but I decided not to answer. I guess the reason I'm feeling so upset is that I'm feeling like I'm only worth something if I'm thinner. I also thought she always liked me. She acted like she did. Now it all feels fake. I don't want to host Thanksgiving anymore. Why should I kill myself cooking for days for someone who only really liked me when I lost a few pounds? My partner thinks I'm overreacting, and I misunderstood her. He said it's normal for MILs to not like DILs at first, because we take away their sons. But I didn't take him away. He is the one who hasn't made an effort to spend much time with her. Every time we have seen her is because I organized it. But she's old, she's a blunt Asian mom, and she doesn't know I had eating disorders. So, am I the asshole for wanting to cancel Thanksgiving? Should I just forgive her and suck it up so the family has a nice Thanksgiving together? Am I being a huge baby? OP is not an AH for being frustrated with her dysfunctional in-laws. OP's refusal to host Thanksgiving and her insistence on not inviting her toxic mother-in-law to the party is 100% justified. So I would rate OP 0 and OP's mother-in-law 2 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story of this chapter from Infinite-Minute 2004. AITA for losing it on my roommate for trashing my newborn's formula. I, 20F, rent a room from my roommate, 26F dad. She is a single mother. I'm a single mother. I have a 12-week-old baby who is exclusively on Nutramigen formula. For those who don't know, Nutramigen is really expensive, and the WIC I get barely covers the cost of formula, and the fresh food I'm allotted to get with WIC. My daughter is so colicky and has never been happy since she was born. I know this sucks for my roommate and her own kid, who's 2. I do my best to keep my daughter calm and happy, but her doctor said she's just an unhappy baby and will grow out of it. I had to put her in daycare at 6 weeks old, and I currently work retail for barely above minimum wage, which is $7.25 USD in my state LMAO. So it's been a struggle. My roommate has some different parenting beliefs. Her kid still breastfeeds when they want to. She believes in delayed vaccines, is vegetarian, but wants to go vegan with her kid, etc. A lot of woo-woo stuff, which if it works for her and her kid, great. I literally stay in my room with my daughter 90% of the time because she tries to convince me that I'm doing things wrong. Like when my daughter spits up, projectile vomits, or has a blowout, should be giving her oatmeal baths instead of using baby Aveeno type LOL. To make a really long story short, she has never liked the fact I didn't want to breastfeed my daughter. I tried in the hospital and was told by a lactation consultant that it would be difficult. My daughter has a tongue tie and weak latch, and formula would probably be best. So onto formula we went. The similar formula the hospital gave me gave my daughter bloody poops. So her doctor had me try Nutramigen, and yay, it was something she can keep down 50% of the time. She still spits up or vomits, and my roommate will make comments about how if I breastfed, she wouldn't be so sick. I'm poisoning her with formula, etc. I just roll my eyes and try to avoid her in the common areas of her house. I get home today after working and my daughter is hungry, cries screaming her head off. Daycare worker said she refused her last bottle at daycare and she threw up on the car ride home. And I'm looking for her formula cans and can't find them. I just start yelling, where the f is her formula? Because my roommate likes to change around the kitchen items like groceries in the pantry or pots and pans, and it always stresses me out. My roommate walked into the kitchen and said she got rid of it. I yelled at her, "What the f do you mean you got rid of it?" She yelled back that she couldn't stand to see me feed my baby poison any longer and had to do something about it. She pointed to the trash can, and I opened it up and saw the powder in the trash where she had just opened up the formula cans and dumped them. I just lost my shit and screamed at her and told her she needed to replace my daughter's formula right the f now. Her dad pays her bills and he makes an extra $600 a month off me, not including utilities. I don't have mommy or daddy's tit to suck on and live off of. She started yelling back at me that I couldn't talk to her that way in her own house, and I had to go. I grab my daughter, who's still in her car seat, and start going to my room, where I can lock the door, and my roommate grabbed the car seat handle and tried to yank my daughter away from me. I yelled at her again to not touch my daughter and ended up locking us both in the room. After I calmed down a bit, I ended up calling my mom to see if I could borrow money to get my daughter more formula until I get paid next week. I explained everything to my mom, got angry all over again. My mom asked, why did I yell at my roommate and I should have kept my composure better, and said I get what I deserve if I end up homeless with my daughter LMAO. I don't know anymore. I don't think I am, but my mom sure made me feel like one. I got to get TF out of here for both our sakes. AITA, edit. Since some of y'all want to be I know I should have kept my legs closed, LOL. My daughter's father pays $150 per month in child support and sees her once a week. It isn't much, but I'm grateful for what I can get. Don't need people on Reddit calling me names and shit. I feel bad enough for my situation in the fact I brought a baby into this world when I wasn't prepared. My daughter's doctor's office gave me 4 sample cans of her formula before they closed, which will last us a few days. I will be calling my WIC caseworker in the morning too to see if she can be of any help. Police report has been filed. They suggested I call the National Domestic Violence Hotline as well. Waiting to see if any of the shelters in my area have space for us both. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take money I don't have and get a hotel room because I can't stay here any longer. Called my roommate's dad again and explained everything. He said he can't help me because he has to look out for his daughter first, LMAO. Said if I don't pay rent on the first of deck, he's filing eviction papers. I'm ready to say good riddance anyways, TBH. I'm tired and scared and angry. I have to go to work tomorrow and try and figure all of this out on my own. I can't even call out if I wanted to, because if I call out, I don't get paid, and I need the money more than ever right now, LOL. I'm gonna see if her dad will take her for a day or two, but I'm not hopeful on that either, because he's never had any real alone time her. If it weren't for the court-ordered child support, he wouldn't pay anything at all. Edit 2. One women's shelter won't have space for us until the weekend, but the worker I spoke to said we have a spot available as soon as it comes up. Here's hoping I can survive wacko roommate for a few more days and maybe get my money back for the all formula she wasted. OP is not an AH, and her frustration for her baby's well-being is 100% justified. OP's roommate is an AH for being intrusive and criticizing. OP just took a stand for her baby, nothing else. As for scores, I would rate OP's roommate 3.5 out of 5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the last story of this chapter from the disastrous-eb 3543. AITA for gifting only one of my daughters a maternity photo shoot. I, 53F, am a single mother of 2 daughters, Claire, 26F, and Ava, 17F. They are currently both pregnant. Claire is nearly 7 months along and Ava is 4 months. Claire is married and her baby was planned. Ava's on the other end was a complete shock to all of us. She keeps saying it was an honest mistake, but she seemed so overjoyed about the news that I'm almost suspicious if she's telling the truth. Obviously, it's too late now, so the only thing we can do is keep marching forward. I was severely disappointed, but she decided to keep her pregnancy, and I will support her choice. I'll look after the baby anytime I can, at least for the first several months, as long as she and her BF finish school and get jobs. I work from home, so I know I can do it. This is so they'll be able to some money by avoiding daycare costs. A little over a week ago, Claire came to visit me and brought up maternity photo shoots. She said she'd love one, but the professional ones can cost a lot, and she wanted to save as much money for the baby as possible. She seemed truly disappointed, and I found myself offering to pay in full for her to have one. She offered to at least pay for a part of it, but I insisted it'll be an early birthday gift for my granddaughter, and told her not to worry about it. Turns out that Ava overheard us and came to me later asking for one as well. I offered to ask her sister if she could possibly pose in a couple shots at her shoot. Ava didn't like that idea. She said she wants a different background style than her sister. Plus, she wanted to wait to do it until her pregnancy bump is more obvious. She wants a complete photo shoot of her own. I decided to be blunt and just tell her I wouldn't pay for her to have a professional photo shoot. I wouldn't even lend her part of the fee. Her and her BF will have to come up with the money on their own if they want a nice, fancy photo shoot. She seemed shocked and became angry at me. She yelled how it wasn't fair that Claire gets a fully paid pro photo shoot when I wouldn't even partially help her pay for one. She insisted I'm already favoring one grandchild over the other. She even began to cry. That is absolutely not true. Claire's photo shoot is going to be a few $100s, if not more. But it's the only cost I'm helping her with. Her and her husband are covering all other baby expenses on their own. With Ava, it's a given I'll be the one paying for the majority of the baby stuff. Crib, diapers, etc. Ava and her BF will contribute what they can, but it won't be a lot. I love both my daughters, but don't want to pay a huge amount twice when I'm already helping Ava out so much. This photo shoot is the only gift help Claire has let me give her throughout her pregnancy, so this is important to me. I'd be happy to help Ava find a pretty place and take pictures of her own, but she ignored me when I suggested that. Ava is still giving me the silent treatment. I told my sister about everything, and she said she understood why Ava was so upset. To her, it seems totally unfair that I won't give this special gift to both my daughters, no matter what I'm already paying for. She pointed out how it's definitely possible for me to rework my budget to afford both photo shoots. It would be a bit tough, but totally doable. My sister says it looks like I'm only giving Claire a fully paid photo shoot as some sorts of punishment for Ava, since she got pregnant so young. Some of my friends agree with me, but the rest agree with what my sister said. I've just been so stressed over Ava's pregnancy. I'm thinking it might be clouding my judgment. AITA, TLDR. Both of my daughters are pregnant. One of them is still a teenager. I will be almost entirely supporting my teen with the baby costs. I've decided to gift my other daughter a fully paid pro-maternity photo shoot. My teen also wants one, but I don't want to just pay it for her since I'm already paying for so many of her baby stuff. I won't even lend her part of the money. Is that unfair? AITA? OP is not an AH here for prioritizing her budget and treating her daughters differently based on their circumstances. OP daughter is overreacting here.